Nightingale is the CMLL Women's Champion after the title was vacated earlier last week. We're going to talk about the rise of Willow Nightingale in the world of professional wrestling on today's episode of WrstlXtra. So stay tuned.
Yo, this is WrstlXtra. I'm your boy, A Dazzle, the Black Wrestling Advocate. Always joined by my trios team, the Real House of Black Mex, the WrestleManiac, if you will, yeet. And of course, the omnipresent wise man, that is Gerard Bonner. The girl with the power is now the girl with the Mexican Women's Championship, the CMLL. Such a tongue twister. CMLL, World Women's Championship. Of course, the big news surrounding all of this before she won the championship was the way it was. Some say controversially. There's talk of it being, in a good way, in a bad way. But Stephanie Vaquer, who was the previous champion, vacated the title suddenly and signed with WWE. Already made her first appearance at WWE live event in Mexico. The timing, everything. Anyway, but coming out of all of that, the good news is that Willow Nightingale sees herself as the new champion, defeated Luvia and Viva Van in a triple threat match at the New Japan CMLL Fantastica Mania event on the weekend. Gerard, I'm gonna go to you first. In all this good news, Gerard decided that it was important to put out a vid chronicling the last 12 or 14 months, I think it was very specifically, of Willow's achievements. My friend, can you run through all of those again for the people watching at home? And we'll talk about all of that.
Absolutely. It's pretty incredible and remarkable to see what Willow Nightingale has done in the last 14 months. If you go back to May of last year at Resurgence, that's where she won the inaugural New Japan Strong Women's Championship, defeating Mercedes Moné. And I think that started to open a lot of people's eyes to who Willow Nightingale is. 2 months later, she wins the Owen Hart Memorial Cup. And in there and handed one of the very few losses to Athena during Athena's AEW and ROH run. Then from there, so she wins that. She ends up being named in the top 10 of the PWI 250 for the year 2023 at number 8, which is remarkable considering that at that point, she had not held an AEW championship or a world championship. And so it's pretty remarkable. Then you get to April of this year, and she wins the TBS championship from Julia Hart at Dynasty. And then, of course, now you add this whole CMLL Women's World Championship, which, by the way, 3 days earlier, she was once again in the finals of the Owen Hart Memorial Cup for the second consecutive year. I absolutely think it's time that the whole world put some respect on the name of Willow Nightingale. She is more than just a pretty face. She is a powerhouse. She is remarkable. She is dependable. And I find this move very interesting because I certainly thought that CMLL might decide to put it on someone from CMLL. But the decision to go with someone from AEW who works New Japan, who obviously works CMLL, is a big deal. Certainly, Nightingale is deserving of this incredible honor, won a triple threat match over the weekend. And so, out of some people's unfortunate maneuvers and things of that nature come some really wonderful things. And, we might have a conversation about Stephanie Vaquer at another time because I think it was a great move for her. And now I think this is a great move for Willow Nightingale. And if my memory serves me correctly, I recall her talking about how this really lifted her spirits because, she was really kind of bummed out about some of the things happening in AEW. And I would have too. I mean, you think about everything I described to you, yet she was having to lay down for Mercedes Moné and then ending up in kind of a futile war with Chris Statlander, you know? So it was like, what are we doing here? So I am very, very grateful that, you know, people are seeing her worth and value. And now she is a women's world champion over at CMLL. Congratulations to Willow Nightingale.
On top of all of that she's done, so even in just this win alone, she becomes the first female, I believe, to hold a major Mexican championship. She's an American-born woman who held the CMLL World Women's Championship. You know, and add that to the fact that she held a New Japan title, a major American championship, women's championship, and now Mexican. I'm guessing no one else has done that. I imagine no one else has done that. I'm guessing that no one else has done that, especially that female. But I don't think there's any female that's done that, as far as I know.
Yeah, because Taya Valkyrie has won championships in Mexico, but not in AEW. And I don't recall that she's done that in New Japan as well. So yeah, this is some uncharted territory here.
For sure. And all in her first attempt at that championship as well.
Absolutely.
Which is crazy. And then when you also think that while Stephanie Vaquer and Mercedes Moné were going at each other, Willow has victories over both of them.
Yes, she does.
Which is crazy. So we can add that to all this stuff that she's done in the last 12, 14 months. And really, really say that people need to have eyes on this woman. Mex, we have been talking about this woman for years upon years. Even when Jade Cargill was TBS champion, we were saying she should be the next one and all this kind of stuff. How does this win, in your mind, rank for Willow Nightingale on a personal level?
I think it's a good win. It's not one of the big titles over there, you know. For CMLL, it's a big title for them, especially off the back of Stephanie Vaquer that was doing a good job, as far as I know, that had it. So I think the most, you know, I guess the best thing that this says about Willow is that point that Gerard touched on, the dependability. It's almost entering the realm of a John Moxley. You know, a promotion is in need. You know, we need to kind of at least bridge a gap. Not to say that it's not transitional, but at least to bridge a gap, we need someone that we can depend on. And rather than choosing one of their homegrown CMLL roster women, they've chosen to put it on Willow Nightingale. And her star is growing. Like we've been saying this, like you said, I think the world took a while to get to this point of pushing her and kind of, you know, maybe having the faith, because from what we saw the best part of 18 to 20 months ago, you know, it's not very far removed from what we're getting now, sort of thing. We could have done this a lot earlier, is what I'm trying to get at. But you know, there's no time like the present, and she's filling all the right spots, ticking all the right boxes. She cut a really good promo after I watched her match from CMLL, and she cut a really good promo after it. And I was just smiling ear to ear, just thinking, this is why they've made you champion. Like, you're just so relatable. It just makes so much sense, sort of thing. Like, so yeah, hopefully, you know, when it's all kind of said and done, she goes back to her home promotion in AEW, and it can really get her involved in some like critical storylines and push her up the card.
Yeah, for sure. It's been mentioned, of course, with the way Stephanie Vaquer left the promotion, joined the WWE. Makes you kind of kept a very close eye on what's been happening, and there's been kind of contrary, you know, views on how this all happened. In your eyes, how have you interpreted this whole thing?
Oh, opportunity rang and she took the opportunity. This is someone that has been documented. Rey Mysterio is her favorite wrestler. She tried out for WWE a couple years ago, 2018 or so, didn't get in. you know, went back working on her craft and honing her craft, became as kind of, I guess, undeniable at this point as she was. Some don't want to necessarily give the distinction to Mercedes Moné, but Mercedes Moné had the match with her at Forbidden Door, which ultimately got the suitors talking. AEW were already, you know, made her an offer. WWE made her an offer. And we've spoken about this before. Like, the people that we see wrestling today, especially of a certain age profile, they didn't grow up on AEW. Right. They grew up on the WWE. And, you know, some of them, it is their ultimate dream to you know, get there. I read a story about Stephanie Vaquer was like, she wanted to go to a WWE show. I think that was in Mexico at the time, maybe a live show like we got on the weekend, and she had to work extra money or something, like extra days at work to earn the money to get to the show. By the time she had earned the extra money, the show was sold out or something, so she never got to go. So I was even making a joke that, you know, the whole fact of they've signed her on Tuesday, she had her last match, said bye to the crowd. Wednesday, the press releases and stuff came out. And then by about Thursday, they were advertising that she was going to be on the card in Monterrey. So it's like Shawn Michaels is here tweeting her like, "Oh, we can't wait for you to turn up to the Performance Center." But really and truly, Triple H is saying, like, "No, stay there. We're coming. Like, we're coming down there this weekend," sort of thing. So, and it's got to be one of the quickest kind of turnovers from being signed to you know, having that debut match. And where do we see her if she turns up within NXT? It seems, especially with Shawn Michaels' tweet. They're stacking it. Life for Roxanne is going to become very hard very quickly with her. Julia's now apparently had her last match for Marigold and what she's doing over there. So yeah, it's looking very good. But yeah, her leaving created this opportunity for Willow, and yeah, Willow grabbed it with both hands.
Yeah, man, for sure. You know, we talk about, you know, the way Stephanie left and came and all the rest of it, and you know, it's like you said, you know, Shawn Michaels was like, yeah, you know, can't wait to see her. But Triple H is like, no, I'm gonna come pick you up. Let me stay a while. I'll come pick you up, and then we'll go down there. Mex mentioned, of course, you know, with Roxanne being the NXT Women's Championship. We were praising, you know, in the little short few minutes that we did last week, praising Roxanne's work at the moment. But she really is about to get some real formidable competition in Stephanie and Julia. Gerard, how are you seeing this? You know, she's had Jordan Grace, as you said. Stephanie and Julia are on their way. Just the NXT women's roster is just ridiculous at the moment. How do you see this whole thing? How excited are you for Roxanne's next move, next match, and just where NXT is going?
Extremely excited. I decided over the weekend that I was just going to spend some time watching some more matches from Stephanie Vaquer. And I was on New Japan World and, you know, ran across some crazy matches. A match, strangely enough, that she had at Fantastica Mania UK in May against Rio. And it was interesting because at the end of that match, she said, "I'll be back in August." So to me, it just goes to show you how quick this deal came together, because she did not know about that deal in May. And there's some other commentary we'll get to around Stephanie potentially in terms of why she took this deal. But
that was actually going to be my next question. So finish your point.
Yeah. So while I was watching, one of the other matches I watched was Stephanie Vaquer versus Julia. And watching that in a New Japan ring, and I said, my God, this is coming to NXT. I'm going to go on record now and say, for everybody who missed the black and gold era, I think we're about to revisit it and potentially surpass it, particularly on the women's side. And here's why. Because we went through the 2.0 era, but here we are, and we're seeing these insane prospects like Kalani and Sol Ruka. We see how Lash Legend has improved. We see, what's happening with Jada Parker. And, we can run down this list, Fallon Henley and Ariana Grace and Carmen Petrovich. I just named 7 or 8 women, right? Several of them are brand new to the business.
Right.
So they have time to grow, and they're going to get to grow with a Julia, with a Roxanne, with a Stephanie Vaquer, potentially Delta coming from Australia. Like we're about to, and then you have a Mia Yim coming down and hanging out, Natalia coming down and hanging out. Like this is a scary place in NXT right now. It's scary good. And we just need to strap on our seatbelts because we're about to see some things we've never seen before. And before it's all said and done, we may argue that we are sitting through the best era of NXT.
Moving on to the next question. Why do you think Stephanie decided to go with WWE, even though you've got New Japan sitting right there, AEW sitting right there? She's just had, the match that kind of put her on the map at Forbidden Door. What do you think it was that made her say, no, I'm gonna go here and I'm gonna do it right this second?
I think it's 2 things. One, obviously, as Mech said, she grew up loving WWE. And I would make the argument that just about anybody who grew up where WWE was kind of the thing to watch, the goal is to get there. So if you get the opportunity, you go. But there's also this other underlying story that a lot of people aren't talking about. And that is there's another wrestler that's connected to Stephanie Vaquer, one that she used to date. And his name is Quattrero. He actually is in jail right now for domestic abuse and attempted murder. And there is talk that his sentence is about to end and that CMLL and AAA are very interested in that ending. So it's not just her leaving to go to WWE. It's her protecting her own life. And I would figure that, and again, the internet wrestling community doing all they do, most people today, you see one headline and you run with it. And, instead of really looking for the deeper story here, if you're talking about protecting your own life and you fear for your own life in the place that you work, you're going to get as far away from that as you can. And the WWE allows her to get much further. If she's with AEW, she's still partnered. There's still a connection. If she's with New Japan, she's still partnered. There's a connection. If she's with WWE, she's protected. And so I think it is not just a love for WWE, but an attempt to really preserve her own life. It's one of the reasons why I believe WWE, think about how fast they moved on this, right? There was no formal press release. There was no massive statement on ESPN. Like none of those things happened. They're like, you come in now, and we're going to come get you out of there. So I applaud the WWE. I applaud Stephanie. And I know, CMLL might feel like, oh my God, how could you do this to us? But if you got to protect your life, run, daughter, run.
Just to that point, I think it was said as well, obviously some people like Roosh and stuff, maybe like good friends with the guy as well. So it's like, you don't want to kind of, even if the guy isn't necessarily a threat, if these people are friends with him, it's still kind of an uncomfortable working environment sort of thing.
Absolutely.
Very, very interesting. A very worrying story at the same time as well. But it makes sense, as you said, Gerard, of the kind of very quick turnaround. Her going from one place to the other. Crazy stuff. More things we learned from AEW over the weekend, or this past week, should I say, is the Owen tournament finals. Obviously, Willow was in one. The other one was between Hangman and Bryan Danielson. Danielson came out with the win and will be facing Swerve at All In. Following the match, Swerve comes out and kind of just with the win of Daniel Bryan. Oh yeah, you won. Yeah, I'm gonna beat you when All In comes. Yeah, but I'm going to Blood and Guts for Team AEW. Mex, how did you find this promo and the demeanor of Swerve, and also the decision for him to be part of Team AEW for Blood and Guts?
Firstly, it was just super surprising that Danielson won. I guess All In has been kind of, bookmarked as his kind of final big hurrah before he goes into this kind of part-time retirement. But like, I thought you could have probably done another match rather than giving him this one, but maybe they want to end the whole show with, an ovation for him, which is deserved, of course. In that aspect, it kind of takes me out thinking that, well, Danielson probably isn't winning this title. So then I just don't feel as invested in that main event. If it was Hangman and Swerve, as we probably assumed it would be, then it's like, it's anyone's game sort of thing. Like they can walk out as champion, but I think Swerve should have it in the bag. And yeah, like to your point, I don't feel like in that particular segment, maybe they ramp things up over the next week, that Swerve really kind of got us excited for him Danielson main event. It was almost like, okay, yeah, well, this, that, and the other, we'll meet again, and this will be your final countdown in reference to his theme music or whatever. But yeah, we'll see how it goes over the next few weeks. Swerve is obviously more concerned with joining Team AEW, which for me, this is the people always say like WWE shoehorn in war games, and you can see from 6 months away when it's war games time of the year and you're kind of building alliances and stuff. This is the most forced blood and guts in the world. Like, no one cares like about this Elite versus Team AEW. And then the first person you name on Team AEW is the Ring of Honor world title holder, Mark Briscoe, who has never defended the Ring of Honor title. Like, it's just a mess. Like, and I just think it's just, all right, we know we have to, like, these matches, WWE as well, we just need to use these matches on the calendar when the occasion needs it. Not just have these in the calendar every year and hey, we're forcing it in. And yeah, like that seemed to be obviously once Hangman said sign him up to Team Elite, it seemed like, this is Swerve's focus now. Like, I need to get my revenge on Hangman sort of thing. So that's why he's in it. Listen, I know I'm going to enjoy the match, but it's just, it's just how we're getting here is just like, oh, come on. It's almost cringy sort of thing. Like, just kind of putting things together to make things work to get us here. I don't know.
I think for me, the thing that makes it feels even more forced is that they just had what was the other one where Darby Allin got burnt or someone got set on fire?
Oh yeah, the Stadium Stampede.
Yeah, like that happened. What, 2 months
last
ago?
Yeah.
Which
the last
again
pay-per-view.
was which again was Team AEW versus Team Elite. So why are we doing it again?
Right.
With different people, maybe apart from Darby Allin. But yeah, like, I don't get it. Why didn't you just hold out until Blood and Guts to do this whole thing? Build it a little bit more, maybe. And yeah, to your point, Max, I've seen it said it was, just after Money in the Bank, or probably just before as well, where people are saying, this whole thing of having PLEs, pay-per-views centered around a stipulation or stipulation matches is kind of getting a bit tedious now. And I think I'm starting to agree. At first, I was like, yeah, but we know what's coming up and But now I'm thinking, yeah, maybe it is because it's like with the whole bloodline thing. As exciting as it is to kind of predict who's gonna turn up and who's gonna be part of this group and how we're gonna get there and whatnot. There's a part of it that's like, we know what's going to happen, so we're losing a bit of excitement at the same time. It's a weird place to be. But yeah, it's going to be, as you said, the match itself should be intriguing. But to go off another point in terms of Swerve, you mentioned that there was no real excitement for the match, and maybe it's almost like a set that Swerve's going to win. it's interesting because we've talked about it here as well, but Bully Ray mentioned it again on the Boston Open Radio podcast, I believe it was this week, talking about obviously the way that Swerve has been portrayed. If it now seems as though he's going to beat Danielson at All In, Gerard, do you feel as though that is, they're making another statement that this is our champion and we're trying to show you that he can beat the best in the same way that he beat Ospreay, at Forbidden Door?
I actually think it's the opposite. I think it's their way of trying to make us think it's almost impossible for Danielson to win. Much like when we walked into this finals last week, we were like, oh, Hangman's going to win this. Like we just know it. And so when they swerved us like that, it made me go, Danielson could actually win this. And here's the reasoning to me. If there's one, AEW has had their history of not necessarily getting certain things right. But one thing they do well is honor legends. The way they treated Sting, his run was impeccable. And the way they treated kind of, his run out, man, they gave him a championship. They gave him a great final match and send off. Knowing that this is Danielson's final year, I'm not surprised that he gets a massive moment. I think I said it here last week that he has to have a massive moment outside of the WWE such that WrestleMania 30 isn't the crowning achievement of his career. So that's got to be All In. I mean, to me, what's a bigger moment? Is it, them saying, thank you, Brian, as he, waves off into the sunset? Or is it 80,000 people chanting yes in another stadium? We had this happen 10 years ago. I think it's important for Bryan Danielson's legacy that it happens again outside of WWE. And so to me, I don't think it's a foregone conclusion that Swerve leaves All In as champion. I think it's this overconfidence that could cost him. And I think Bryan Danielson actually could be the one to end it, because I didn't expect to see Danielson in this spot. I thought Danielson, if anything, I thought they'd end up pulling him and Nigel McGuinness for one more match, which made perfect sense to me in London, But if we're not going that way, then it makes sense that this is a match. Because here's the thing, he's not getting this moment again. Swerve will be back in London next year, like barring injury or something like that. They made a way for him to be there last year. He'll be there next year. This is the final countdown for Danielson. I think they're going to give him a moment. And I think, for all that Swerve is thinking about, hey, I'm going to dominate, I'm looking past this, it's going to be his undoing.
I think the only way Danielson wins this title is if he drops it again 2 weeks later at All Out.
Oh, yeah. I don't think it's a long championship reign. I think it's about the moment at Wembley. I don't think this is about him going on a reign until the end of his career. I don't think it's that.
If him and Swerve run it back at All Out 2 weeks later and Swerve wins it back there, then quite possibly he can win in London. I think what you're saying is it makes a lot of sense, but I think it's definitely the thing that fans would say. I don't think Danielson has any interest in winning matches, full stop, like at any level. Like, he likes to lose, he likes to look good in defeat, he likes to kind of put others over. Obviously he's had to win to build to this point, but I can't see, from what we know of Danielson, I just can't see him saying, like, I'm going to stop Swerve's run in its tracks to take this title of him just to have a yes moment. It could be forced upon him 100%, but I can't see him co-signing that unless he says we'll just do it at London so I can drop it 2 weeks later back to Swerve.
Could there be the possibility? Because in my mind, I'm thinking that, we get the moment, as Gerard said, we get the moment with Brian finally winning the AEW World Championship, which he hasn't done at all yet. Has he won any singles title?
Nope, not in AEW.
There we go. So I think, there is that, but at the same time, I think it, as Gerard said as well, you've got this whole question of legacy as well. And if this is his final year, he has to at least win something. I think he has to at least win something. But in my mind, I don't think it's, you know, if he wins, for me, I feel as though it more gears us up for Ospreay becoming the champion.
As in, if he beats Swerve.
Yeah, he holds it for a couple of months maybe, and then
So
loses it
him
to
and
Ospreay.
Ospreay's his final match.
Yeah. In my head,
I
that's
can see
a bigger moment. It's the legacy thing. It's, you know, it's someone is passing on the torch. It's,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? It's
I
all
could
of
see
that
that.
kind of thing. And I think that's a much bigger moment, and maybe something that even Ospreay was thinking, or the, you know, a discussion's been held already, to where Ospreay said, "Okay, I'm not gonna beat Swerve. I want to beat Bryan Danielson." Like, for me, those are bigger moments. And that's not to take anything away from Swerve, but let's be very real. We've said it so many times on here. He hasn't been presented as a, you know, real world champion, or we've questioned the run, how it's been presented. You know, it's been questioned by, you know, by people in the business like Bully Ray just the other day. So in my head, I feel it's as though it's that, because what Gerard said about the whole moment, that makes sense. But, you know, Mex is correct as well in, if the discussion's had and Danielson, you know, doesn't care. I can't think of a world where Danielson doesn't care about cutting Swerve's run. Like, in his head, he's like, in his head, he's like, yeah, but that kind of looks bad on him because you haven't presented him well. I don't want to cut it this early from him. But there's also a world where he's convinced to do so, and Ospreay is the guy who beats him in his final match. And it's a big, massive thing for Ospreay because, you know, obviously he was the big signing. He was more or less undefeated for a long time. He's already won a champ, you know, this whole big thing of Ospreay. And for Ospreay to be, you know, take the reins off Danielson just makes complete sense to me.
If they do that, that's not a problem. But then I'd question, why did they just do Danielson and Ospreay at AEW Dynasty some months back in April?
Yeah.
So now Ospreay has 2 wins over Danielson, and then Danielson retires, and he can effectively never get back the win.
True. But as you said, Danielson doesn't mind likes losing.
Yeah.
so it kind of works out. Like the orders, it's good, as we always say, that there are different scenarios that make sense and could work. You know what I mean? So it's interesting. It's very, very interesting. But the second I saw that Danielson won the Owen, I thought he's winning the championship at All In.
Like, you thought, really?
Oh yeah, straight away.
I totally did.
I literally thought the opposite. I literally said, Swerve safe.
Yeah,
I then immediately thought Swerve is safe, and we're getting Hangman and Swerve in November, Full Gear, 1 year on from their Texas Death Match. That's literally what I thought immediately.
But I think at the same time, with that rivalry and that feud and that whole story, the World Championship doesn't have to be involved.
Right.
For me, that's the argument as well. It would be nice to. It kind of helps or adds to what we've had before. But I don't know. Maybe it's me as well. But then even with that, I'm not the biggest fan of Paige, so maybe it's this. But I just wouldn't want to see Paige beat Swerve and take his title. That's just me. That's just me on a personal level.
So I think they could have the feud later on, but then somewhere along the line, Paige must have costed Swerve the title.
Yeah.
Then they can have the feud, because the title at this point is about the feud. Hangman is losing his mind because he wanted to stop Swerve by all means winning the title. So unless Hangman costs him, maybe at All In, and then they then go on from there to feud again. Who knows? But
because obviously he's clearly, added himself reluctantly to Team Elite after Swerve has, proclaimed that he's going to be, Team AEW. So, obviously his whole thing is revenge on Swerve, and he's gone in for Swerve in every way possible. So it's very possible that, he costs Swerve the title, maybe at All In, which will kind of tarnish a Bryan Danielson win, maybe, but who knows how we get to that? It could all work out in some way. I don't know. I just feel it for Swerve, if I'm honest.
We'll see.
Yeah. I feel it for Swerve, but who knows what happens there.
Just before we move off AEW, this is something that we hadn't jotted down to speak about today, but I just came to mind. I don't know if you guys had seen this interview that Max Caster done with Chris Van Vliet.
Yeah.
And he was basically dismissing Shelton Benjamin. Why should AEW sign Shelton Benjamin? There are people like myself and others, but he was putting himself over, which you couldn't really tell if this was in character or not. But I think he was saying some pretty damning things, which, I mean, he's an outspoken person, so he probably didn't care whether it was in character or not. Basically saying that, you know, I can fill that spot. There's guys and girls existing in AEW right now that can fill that spot. Every time you make a signing, you're basically telling the existing roster that you know, you guys can't do something that what is why I'm bringing in this person or something to that effect. But it just why I remembered it is because Gerard obviously mentioned the fact that Willow had to do the honors for Mercedes when she came in. Now obviously we know Mercedes is like up there in terms of stardom and stuff like that, and those kind of people, Mercedes and Osprey and Okada, you don't miss when their signature becomes available. You get to work, you bring them in. But and then Shelton Benjamin had a really cool rebuttal when I think Chris Van Vliet had an interview with him a week later or something. Chris Van Vliet was telling him about what Max Caster said, and Shelton Benjamin simply said, "Who's Max Caster?" Like, if they want to bring me in, it's because you aren't doing a job. Like, I can't take anyone's spot. It's because like you are not doing something, so they're looking elsewhere to fulfill that. Shelton obviously went on to say, like, if he does get signed, he just comes in to help people. That's all he is. He said, obviously, I know at this point in my career, I'm not going to be a world champion. I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to do that, which was quite upsetting that he's kind of dismissing his credentials. I guess he's being
that's the shout.
I guess he's just being realistic with things and how he's been booked over the years. But where do you guys stand with that whole kind of conversation on coming in, taking people's spots, and Max Caster, you know, being able to do what Shelton Benjamin can do?
I mean, the way I saw it was from, you know, from Shelton's response when he was speaking to Chris Van Vliet. And, you know, he did say he's never met Max Caster. They've never had any type of interaction, doesn't know who he is, all that kind of stuff. Or knows of him, but, you know, there's been no personal interaction at all. And one of the things that he said was, you know, if you think I'm going to get signed and I'm going to take your spot, it was never your spot in the first place. It was never there. In the same way, we've said it so many times, you know, with the signing of Okada, you mentioned Mercedes Mex, you know, Will Ospreay. When they all came in, I can't think of anyone's spot that they took. Those spots were there for them. And everything that's happened for them since has made sense. I don't think anyone can really argue. We can maybe do this whole thing with Mercedes beating Stephanie and Willow in the space of time, but at the same time, as you said, Mix, who's the bigger star? Who's the bigger name? You know, I mean, you know, at the end of the day, the argument comes back to Mercedes is the bigger star. It was her spot, so she hasn't taken anyone else's spot. Her spot was just higher than everyone else's. It's as simple as that. So yeah, you know, it was very interesting to hear Shelton say that. And I think he's completely right. If someone takes your spot or a higher spot than you, you clearly weren't doing something right in the first place. No one's taken MJF's spot. It's impossible. It's impossible unless you work your way up there. You know what I mean? It's impossible right now to take that. So if your spot isn't that great for someone to kind of, you know, you feel someone's taken yours or gone above you, I don't know what the argument is, but I find it very damaging that, you know, Max Caster, whether in character or not, is just so quick to say something like that. I just don't get it. I just don't get it. Gerard, what are your thoughts in terms of the way it's been done?
Yeah, you know, have a lot of thoughts. First, let me say this. I think whenever someone looks to sign someone to join their roster, it is to improve upon their product. It is to make their product the best product that there can be. So to your point about, adding an Osprey, adding an Okada, adding a Mercedes Moné, what it does is it makes the overall product must see, because people are going to tune in. And again, think about it. WWE is cooking on all cylinders, yet they went and grabbed a Stephanie Vaquer. You know what I mean? So it's not about whose spot. And so to me, this whole spot conversation reeks of old school wrestling. I mean, that's the way they used to talk then. Furthermore, and I say this very respectfully, exactly what spot do you have, Max Caster? Aren't you a tag team wrestler? So are you telling me you expect Shelton Benjamin to come in and start scissoring people? I'm really confused. You expect him to come in and start rapping? I'm really confused. Shelton, and to say you can do what Shelton Benjamin does, I've not seen that demonstrated in the time you've been in AEW. Now, if you've been sitting on those skills and you have not chosen to show them, I don't know who to blame for that. I don't know if we blame booking for that. I don't know if we blame you for that. But I also think what it is it shows that there's no respect for the people who have gone before him. And that's incredibly problematic. If somebody like Shelton Benjamin is interested in coming to your company, he brings 25 years of experience. He brings the experience of being trained with a Brock Lesnar, a Batista, a John Cena. That level of experience is highly valuable for someone who is still relatively new, all things considered, in the business. So I think it says a lot about Max Caster. And I'm not Shelton Benjamin, but I don't know that I would want to work next to somebody who is that open about that, who feels that strongly that you would go onto a non-AEW product and talk like that. I don't know that I'd want to work with somebody like that. And yeah. So I don't think it was a good move, Max Caster. It's not good for AEW. It's not good for Max Caster, the Acclaimed, or anybody else. It's a bad move. And if AEW doesn't end up signing Shelton Benjamin, this could be one of the reasons why.
I find it crazy that he said it. And, if the Acclaimed were currently heels and whatnot, I could kind of see the, character part, but they're not. Nice. So that was not in character, and I know he can kind of be a bit of a jerk, and he kind of makes his whole thing of being that kind of guy sometimes as well, even as a baby face within AEW. But yeah, I think there's just there's a disrespect, there's a clear question of his own self-belief, if he's ready to say that as well, and not that everyone does this, but even to think about another African American to talk about Shelton Benjamin of all people like that, I would understand if it was someone who has had bad press on a personal level, who has been questioned about whether he puts people over like Jericho does sometimes or whatever. Things like that. Like, it's literally been said, and I'm sure Shouting even said this in the interview. Chris Wembley asked him, why do you think you've never won the big one and all this kind of stuff? And he says, I was too much of a nice guy. So for someone to kind of come at this nice guy, very obvious nice guy, for this reason, for no reason, that's put a very, very sour taste in my mouth when it comes to Max Caster, in a big way,
Can I just add, the general consensus of the internet is waiting for the Acclaim to break up so that they can get an Anthony Bowen singles run.
You
know think about Max Caster.
Yeah. And you know what? When they first got together, and we were questioning whether these two randoms work together and blah blah blah, and he was like, doesn't make sense and when they started to click, Anthony Bowens was the star.
Yeah.
Castor was the one you might remember because he comes out and does the rap thing.
The shockwave.
And that's a very good part of what he does. It's a very important part of his character and everything. But when it comes to in ring and kind of noticing who the better wrestler is, or the more well-rounded wrestler, it's Anthony Bowens by an absolute mile. What they do with him going forward and how they market him, if they go to do the singles thing, it's not obvious. But if you were to choose one, it would be Bowens, and especially now after this comment, I'm sorry, Max who? It's maxed out. That's it for me.
The only Max I acknowledge is Maxwell Jacob Friedman.
Crazy. It's crazy. Taking our attentions away, going back towards NXT. We see, of course, the whole NXT TNA collaboration happening, and the one thing I was waiting for has finally happened. I don't care what they do with this NXT TNA thing anymore. It's happened, and that's all I care about. The reunion of the Rascals. We had, of course, Wesley come out, very despondent, very distraught. Wesley come out to address the fans after his loss to Obafemi at Battleground, and
Heatwave.
And we came very close to him saying, "I'm leaving. I'm done. I've had enough." He was just about to utter the words, and then the music hit. And surprisingly to me, the MSK logo came up, and I was like, "Huh?" But then both Zachary Wentz, formerly known as Nash Carter in MSK, but Zachary Wentz and Trey Miguel came out, all donned in their Rascals football jersey made by Blacksmith. Shout out Blacksmith. To save their brother from giving in and offering, obviously, their support and all the rest of it. What's interesting about this as well is, as we said, the whole MSK thing, and it was said backstage. They had a little bit of an interaction with Gallus backstage, and it was said backstage when it's Wentz and Lee, they're MSK. When it's the three of them, it's the Rascals. What does this mean in terms of like where is Wentz now situated? Because and where is Miguel situated? Like, I'm confused. Surely we get rid of the MSK thing, and they're just the Rascals as and when, and we do a Freebird style. No.
Well, they said backstage that it's when it's just Wentz and Wesley, the MSK. When it's all three of them, it's the Rascals. I think more so my surprise was obviously the past relationship with WWE and Zachary Wentz. Yeah, and how things have gone, but he came back on TV and stuff, so it's cool. But we'll see. I think it's a very fun crossover, especially once the matches start happening. People are gonna fall in love with what these guys can do in the ring. In terms of kicking Wesley on, I don't really know how this helps any of his goals, but like it's a nice stopgap to have. Yeah,
for sure. And the intriguing part is, their first match is going to be tonight on NXT against Gallus. So that's going to be very interesting. Wentz and Trey Miguel have kind of been, I think it's happening next week, Thursday on Impact. And they'll be facing No Quarter Catch Crew.
This Thursday.
Alongside Kushida. So they're going to be busy on both shows, which is great. In terms of what this does for Wesley, I do question the way it happened. It kind of just felt, I don't know. I think I expected more of a thing where Gallus attacked Wesley and then he's got something going on and then they rescue him and save him. Was the way it happened a little less exciting? And as you know, when I posted about this whole thing as well, the one question I had was, what does it mean for the demeanor of all three parties? Because for the last few months, the Rascals have been heels, whereas obviously, you know, Wesley's a fan favorite. It's clear that the Rascals have come in on this very good guy type of approach. But if we are to move Wesley forward or do something different with him, does it need a heel turn for Wesley? Gerard, do you think there's something that can be done here differently with Wesley?
I don't think we need a heel turn. B, the Rascals are kind of in this tweener spot right now, because while they had been, you know, heels or bad guys, once the no quarter catch crew started showing up on TNA, you know, they kind of became fan favorites of sorts since they got attacked and things like that. And so now with this match happening and they're teaming with Kushida, that definitely screams fan favorite in TNA. So I think there's, you know, some uniformity between the TNA and NXT worlds. In terms of something fresh for Wesley, this is fresh. It's fresh because the NXT world has not seen him inside of the Rascals. They've seen MSK, but seeing him with Trey Miguel, you know, it's kind of like this. We've watched him have to go solo for a while, and we know how lost he felt. And with that, he gained a whole new fan base. You know, people were behind him, things like that. They likely don't really remember what it was like to see him happy, to see him excited, to see him with his friends. So it almost felt like a high school reunion. You know, like watching you reconnect with people who you loved and you couldn't see or connect with, and now you're back with them. Like, we want to see that. So I think it's good for Wesley. You know, I know we're used to him chasing championships and things of that nature, but I think him being connected to his friends is one of the best things that could pull you out of, you know, depression and the doldrums and wanting to quit. If there's anybody that can stop you from quitting, it's your best friends. So I feel like this is the change that's needed. There's really nothing else. And once we see him operate tonight, I think that'll be interesting as well, to see how they fare against Gallus and to see if we get the Rascals, like, for real, because it's been a long time since we've seen the three of them together. So tonight should be very special.
It should be very, very interesting. One thing that I've been thinking about when it comes to Wesley, and you know, we're talking about him advancing and whatnot, and to go even further than just what he's going to do next on NXT, when he eventually makes that or expected to make that main roster move. You know, we've always asked the question, where would he stand? Would he be lost in the shuffle? And I'm just going to share this thought, and I'll get your reactions. From when he was facing Obafemi, and we know now that Ricochet is no longer with the company, I almost feel as though Wesley could fit into that space, but do even better. And I say that because with Ricochet, it came with expectation, all sorts of fanfare before he signed and all the rest of it. With Wesley, he's grown into that guy in NXT with people watching, you know what I mean? People have watched him grow and all the rest of it. So when he comes into, you know, he eventually makes that move to the main roster, that should help him with, you know, with less expectation on him in terms of what the, you know, people are expecting because of history and whatever else. But then he would have a support system from the fan base because they've seen him grow up. Do you feel as though that is a possibility when it comes to Wesley and the main roster?
I 100% agree. And I'll go one better and say that I think that Wesley could have, and obviously this next guy I'm about to mention, his career is still very much on the up and up. I think Wesley could have like a Sami Zayn-esque career.
Oh, yeah.
I see him being someone that's they can rely on first and foremost, to dominate the mid card. He will have that kind of eventual maybe world title moment, which will, you know, bring us to our knees. Like the minute it happens for Sami Zayn, I'm telling you, it's gonna feel like how it happened for Daniel Bryan back at 30.
Yes.
Like it's
Yeah.
when it happens for Sami Zayn. And I feel like Wesley pretty much fits that kind of, you know, lovable guy that, you know, sometimes it's what they play on with a lot with him, and obviously some of it is real, is the whole reality stuff and the crisis of confidence and losing his friend and having to start again. That whole thing of Zachary leaving and them playing it out on screen is one of the greatest things that happened for Wesley.
Absolutely.
Because yeah, they could have just went about, you're a singles guy now, wrestle. But they let him develop a character off that, made him vulnerable. Even to your point where when these guys, just before these guys came back last week, he was just like, again, I'm here at rock bottom. I came back, I worked hard, lost against Obafemi, like I'm packing it in now, sort of thing. Like I really do think this is what Ricochet didn't get, you know. Oh, he's a superhero, full stop. Like, period. Okay. Like what else? Like, you didn't build him, he didn't improve in terms of, or he didn't get to showcase what he's now capable to do in terms of as on the mic and stuff like that. I think Wesley has all of those things already now, and with that relatability to the crowd, the sky honestly is his ceiling. Like he can reach all of these heights I'm talking about.
Gerard, what are your thoughts in terms of the Ricochet Wesley kind of comparison?
I think there are similarities and very clear differences. To Max's point, I think Wesley, and perhaps it's because we were able to see the journey of him moving from being a tag team wrestler to a singles wrestler, going on that journey connects us with him. But what makes these guys so different is Wesley can talk. Like we want to hear a Wesley promo. We only want to see Ricochet wrestle. And that's a massive difference. Considering and again, that's why should Ricochet go to AEW will likely work well for him, because they really want to see you wrestle there versus wanting to hear you talk. We want that connection, and that's what WWE is about. And Wesley has found much like, and I love the comparison to Sami Zayn, because they are the underdogs. They are the guys you look at and you go, I don't see how they're going to walk away with this win. And they managed to prove to you that we can win, you know, and he takes us on the journey. Ricochet never really took us on the journey. It was us. You know, if I were to make this a music comparison, I like to do that. Ricochet is kind of like a Take Six, where you can't sing along with them. You just have to marvel at what they do. Like you're not gonna put those harmonies together. I remember seeing them in concert one time, and we all sat like we were in an opera hall, because it was like, this is amazing, but none of us will ever be able to do it. You know, it's not gonna be like an Earth, Wind, and Fire concert where you're singing September. Like it's not gonna happen. With Wesley, we're singing September. You know, and because of that, much like Sami Zayn, we're going on the journey. We're going to travel with him. We're going to do whatever it takes. So I think to that point, Wesley, here we're talking about filling spots. I think he does more than fill the Ricochet spot, because Ricochet wasn't able to do that. You know, he's able to do what Ricochet couldn't do, and it's come in a package that most didn't expect.
And that's why it started to make sense for me, because for a very, very long time, even when Carmelo and Breaker were still in NXT, and we're kind of looking at who's going to go up, and you know, you saw Ilya and Braun and you know, Carmelo go up, and I was thinking to myself, what happens if, or when, because I wasn't expecting to happen anytime soon, but when Wesley goes up, what happens to him? And I was just like, I just don't see it working out. But over the last few weeks, I'm like, it can work, because one guy's gone and he can do the stuff that we saw Ricochet do. I'm sure Ricochet can do way more than what we actually saw.
Sure.
But the things that we saw Ricochet do, and the things that we've seen Wesley do, you know, he can do all of that in ring. But as you said, Gerard, the difference is, you know, he can talk. That whole journey thing makes a massive difference. We've never seen any type of journey from Ricochet at all. We've just seen him coast, unfortunately. And whether that be booking, because you know, he kind of came when Vince was still in charge, Afterwards, it was kind of, yes, we saw him a lot more, but it was like, but what is he actually doing? You know what I mean? And yeah, so with Wesley, yeah, we've got the journey. We know he's, you know, that the man with a big heart and all that kind of stuff. So I can see that being his thing if and when he's ready. But I'm sure there'll be a bit of time until that happens. There's still a bit of building for him to do. I would love to see him win another championship, whether it be the North American or the NXT championship, have another run as a champion, and then make a move. But I'm glad now that I can see that there's something for him on that main roster, as opposed to worrying he's just going to get lost in the system, sort of thing. So that's exciting. But Wesley and the Rascals reunite in the ring for the first time in about 3 years, I think it is. Wow, that's a long time.
Feels longer.
Yeah, I think it's three to 4 years. Yeah. Tonight on NXT against Gallus. That should be a very interesting match. So many things can come from it. Of course, as I mentioned already, you know, no quarter catch crew have been tangling with the Rascals and will do on Thursday as well. So that may play into the next few weeks as well on NXT. One question I was going to ask, actually, and it might be too early to ask this question, but I still feel as though it's got a place. We've seen, you know, the whole crossovers and stuff like that, and people appearing on NXT, TNA appearing on NXT. We saw, of course, you know, they said his name. He appeared. Joe Hendry was in the main event. Got the pin alongside Trick Williams as well. But in TNA, we've seen an Izzy Dame, and we've seen what's the other lady's name?
Tatum
Paxley. And then of course we've seen No Quarter Catch Crew. Is it possible for us to say that NXT are not really sending their stars to TNA?
They're not sending the people at the top of the card. Yeah, they're not.
Is that a problem? Does that show what this whole thing is? Because I'm starting to question it.
I'm not questioning it yet. I think it's still very early in this. It's early. Here's the thing. If you sent Trick Williams now, what would we have to build towards? You know? And so I think there is a building that happens. And I also think it's interesting when and where they were sent. So, and we have to also ask ourselves again, kind of who's getting to benefit and what are the desired benefits. I think sending a Tatum Paxley and an Izzy Dame over to TNA is actually very good for Tatum Paxley and Izzy Dame.
Oh, for sure. For them,
giving them the opportunity to get reps in a different space. Also realizing that particular audience is a bit smaller. TNA sending some of their big guns over to NXT is a big win for them. I mean, to me, the proof is the fact that Slammiversary is sold out. 4,000 seat venue, which for TNA is massive. They haven't done those kinds of numbers in literal years. So something about this is working. I also think because it appears like it's going to be a long-term situation, that, you know, we got something good here. I'm not upset with it. It is clear that it is not the very top of the card, but you know, the fact that we are now starting to not just get run-ins, but this week we're going to get a match on the men's side. No Quarter Catch Crew is nothing to play with. You know, Charlie Dempsey was over there in All Japan. He's now going to be doing Bloodsport in a couple of weeks. Like, you know, so it's not throwaway guys per se. We haven't put Level Up guys on there. You know what I mean? Like if we had Level Up showing up there, then it'd be like, oh, okay. But the fact that the TNA audience still recognizes who these people are, says that they are connected enough to NXT to where they know, you know.
When I was questioning the New Japan and AEW partnership, people were telling me but New Japan are benefiting because they are selling more tickets to their US shows and stuff like that, because of their connection with AEW and AEW stars being on those cards. Well, when I was having the same question over who's benefiting from this TNA NXT stuff, and people saying, yeah, like it's not really benefiting TNA at all. I went back to the same argument. So apparently, I think the last pay-per-view, is that the one that Tate and Paxley showed up on? I forget the name.
Yeah.
Against All Out, I think it was.
Yeah.
In Chicago.
They had like 1,000 more buys on that
Mhm.
pay-per-view than their usual thing. So,
Yeah.
you know, for some of these companies, it may not be you're going to get my champion turn up on your show, but something as simple as revenue is what they might be gaining and what they might be happy with. So, yeah, I think it could just be as simple as that.
Plus, let's consider that one of their big stars in Joe Hendry was in the main event of NXT next to the guy who just lost the NXT championship, the most popular guy. So the most popular guy in both brands are in a team, and Joe Hendry gets the pin on NXT. You know, over a team that had the NXT champion on it. So if we're talking about, again, you know, when we're looking at the New Japan AEW partnership, when's the last time we saw someone from New Japan actually win a match on AEW television or pay-per-view? You know, so it's definitely a different scenario. And again, Joe Hendry is looking like a star. When you think that, you know, the most liked tweet of the year for WWE is Joe Hendry's entrance, right?
Crazy.
Like that's so, yeah, TNA is absolutely benefiting from this. And that's a good thing. It's a really, really good thing.
I believe Slammiversary happens, is it this weekend or is it next weekend?
It's this weekend.
This weekend, isn't it? With the popularity of Joe Hendry, he's in the main event, the 6-man match for the TNA World Heavyweight Championship. Of course, Moose is currently holding it at the moment. Is Moose losing out? And does Joe Hendry take this championship? I mean, I've not been the biggest believer, but I might just go on record to say I believe in Joe Hendry.
If they're intelligent, it's time to cash out.
I believe so. And you know, just from what he did, I watched you know, the last show, Thursday show. They were even saying that was sold out as well. You know, from what he's done on the last show, what he did, you know, coming to NXT, even from that battle, that few seconds in the Battle Royal, obviously the tweet that's come from that, all the rest of it. I think it might be very important for TNA to put that championship on him. And I don't think it's just a popularity thing. It's also as well what he can get done in the ring. I didn't actually realize until I watched the last few matches of his. So I'm like, okay, I kind of, yes, we've got the gimmick thing and everyone's kind of, you know, caught onto the whole gimmick and whatnot. But I also can see what, you know, a believable champion he could be as well, in the ring as well. So I think it's time. I don't want to see Moose lose anything because the system is just running wild right now. And I think it works brilliantly. And has done, but it might be time. And then to see Joe Hendry turn up in NXT with the TNA Championship, it's that part that would then kind of solidify for me this whole thing as well. So yeah, it's gonna be interesting the next few weeks. Keeping our eyes locked, definitely.
Plus, I think it's gonna move us closer to Obafemi versus Moose. Moose can't be champion.
Yeah, you did say that last week as well. Yeah, true.
So,
true. Yeah. Okay. Cool.
Just to throw in as well, Noah announced their N1 tournament, and Tavion Heights is going to be in the tournament. So that N1 tournament is basically like the G1 that they have in Japan. The winner of the tournament after 2 blocks gets the Noah World Heavyweight title match. So Tavion
That's
Heights is in
huge.
there. He's in Block B, and Josh Briggs is the other NXT name that's in Block A.
Wow.
So for Tavion Heights, especially, someone
That's
obviously
fascinating.
we know his pedigree, but he's basically just made it to, and now he's got this opportunity in another company, you know, second biggest company in Japan.
Crazy.
Right.
Crazy. I must say, you know, Charlie Dempsey is right now the forbidden door, because this guy is everywhere. Which is testament to what he can do and how versatile he is, you know, as a performer as well. So that's amazing for him. Anyway, with all of that said, our time is done. You have been watching WrstlXtra on the WrestleManiac UK YouTube channel. Don't forget to like and subscribe to see when this guy Mex puts out all of his reactions and news to AEW, WWE, everything else in between. You can find Mex also on the Wrestling's channel. Don't forget to like and subscribe to see when they put out their weekly podcast, as well as the new series of Wrestling's House. I watched the first 3 episodes. Oh my days. Oh my days. If you haven't watched it, you need to watch it. It's very interesting.
I need to watch.
To see people watching old school matches, some who are wrestling fans, some who have never watched wrestling before, some who are new to it, watching stuff they have never seen, watching stuff that they watched when they were little. It's crazy. It's crazy. I'm waiting for the new episode very soon. You can also find Mex on Instagram, WrestleManiac UK, WrestleManiac.uk, and WrestleManiac UK on X. You can find the omnipresent professional wise man that is Gerard Bonner on all things Bonafide. You can also find him on his own show, The Faction Show, as well as WWT Live every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. You can find Gerard. Just type in his name, say his name, and he'll appear. I believe in Gerard Bonner.
That's great. That's great.
You can find Gerard doing all of his broadcasting commentary for Our Share Wrestling, IWE, All Caribbean Wrestling, Southern Honor Wrestling, The Nightmare Factory, Turnbuckle Championship Wrestling, everything else in between. Say his name, he will appear. You can find me, A Dazzle, on Black Wrestling Alliance on Instagram, BWA Dazzle on X, when I decide to make an appearance. No one says my name, so I don't appear. Guys, you have been watching WrestlXtra, and we will see you again next week.